Coach Hazelton is a great coach. He cares. He loves football. He loves us.
I've never really been with two better football minds, especially Coach Hayes.
Football people love him. I've never heard a bad word about Scottie Hazelton.
Really, we're looking for this, is to say, hey, we want to be the hardest playing defense in America.
We got to go ham, and we got to work on getting there, okay?
Play with relentless passion to get to the ball. That's the number one thing you want to see out of every defense.
The guys work so hard, you know. They'll go out there and hit anybody. We want to be the hardest playing dudes in the world. You know what I mean?
Well, I want to be the hardest hitting broadcaster in the world. I don't know if I'm quite there yet, and I am sitting across from a former seasoned pro in that regard. So I am the captain and the president, vice president, and secretary of the Scottie Hazelton fan club, which predates having met you or even spoken to you. But now that you are here, Brooke Hazelton, I'm thrilled to have you. I think we've become maybe something in the acquaintance basket, perhaps. But it's an honor to have you, wife of Scottie Hazelton. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I agree. I think we're on the road to friends. So
yeah, we're getting there. I got to really watch my P's and Q's. I don't want to blow it, with this blossoming friendship we're working on. So, I mean, I know you are the seasoned pro with that, news background. So I'm going to try to be on my best broadcasting behavior. So this is honestly a show I wanted to do in some form for a long time, even before your husband was hired here. I've been fascinated for a long time by the coaching wife angle because I know the guy side of, oh, we're on the road X amount of hours, recruiting, especially, college is different from the NFL. I know you've done both. You're constantly on the road. It's never the off season. That's why so many guys leave. And what's the other side of that? You are the other side of that because especially in your case, you have, I think, 4 kids, right?
4 kids, yes.
What is that like? Can you tell me a little bit about the just experience, day to day? How do you kind of get through your daily schedule? I know with my own kids, we're constantly you take this one to this appointment, vice versa. You don't have that teamwork, I don't think, right? It's mostly a Brooke Hazelton show.
Yeah, well, I have teamwork at different times of the year, for sure. There's the summers he's around for 3 or 4 weeks, and, season, of course, is really difficult, really lots of hours, and then recruiting. There's all these sort of cycles of football, right? And each one has a different schedule. So right now we're in the recruiting, and it's not the best time, but it's not the worst. And I don't know, Scottie really, really makes up for it. He's definitely a quality over quantity because he has to be, but he does a good job. And even though he's not there often when he is, we know it and we're happy.
Well, I can vouch for him because I've known him for 17 minutes. And he seems like a great guy because he's out there watching the show in our lobby, if you want to call it that. So on this topic, I put together with Ben, our producer, kind of a mashup of coaches' wives, over the years talking about the experience. I'm curious. I want to run that and curious if it's sort of reflective of your experience as well. Ben, can you run that for us?
You just can't even comprehend what these coaches go through and commit themselves to. On July 13th, my husband went back to work in the office, and his next full day off will probably be Christmas Eve.
Your husband is not there for you on a lot of things to just really do life with you. It's a lot of fun, but it's a very lonely life.
I have a sign that says we interrupt this marriage for football season.
Oh, yeah. I love that sign. I've seen that sign.
Don't bring up a loss. If I see you, don't bring up. I remember that time we beat. That's you don't bring it up.
I looked at Terry and I said, in your wildest dreams, did you ever believe that would ever be a part of 3 national championships? And she says, honey, you're not in my wildest dreams.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of, we ended on a lighthearted note, but I thought, to me, the most interesting thing we came across, and it was in that, segment, was that part about don't come up to me after a loss, don't mention a loss. And, we cut it, obviously, but all 6 of the wives are saying oh yeah, that's the last thing we want. We could be 10-1. Everyone's talking to us after the 1. Is that something that's kind of tough for you where Michigan State does something, it has nothing to do with you at all? And it does have something to do with your husband, but he may have nothing to do with why they lost, but you're kind of answering for it in a way. Is that something you experience?
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Especially just in a day-to-day, taking the kids to school and, just lots of questions we field from just people we know, parents at the school and stuff like that. But as far as Scottie, I'm not sure which wife it was that said, don't ask him about a loss. He used to be a lot more, I don't know what the word is, a lot more grumpy when a loss came. And I think since we've had kids, he still feels those losses just as hard, but it's hard to come home and be mad when you've got 4 kids just thrilled to see you and running into your arms. So I've seen the change in that, like they help. For sure.
I'm curious for like the difference that you might, maybe there's no difference, but from my understanding, like Colin Cowherd is my personal favorite broadcaster, FS1 now, long time with ESPN, but he told this story with ESPN execs regarding Dick Vitale. And he said, Dick Vitale, this guy traveled with them for 20 years on the road, all these towns, this ESPN guy. Dick Vitale has never once, according to this guy, been approached negatively. Everybody loves him. He's Dickie V. But you go on Twitter and it's like, oh, his shtick is old. It's not that they hate him personally, but it's like, oh, like, shut up, Dickie. Like, just retire. It's 90-10 negative, and it's 100-0 positive. In 20 years, he never saw one bad thing. There is negativity on Twitter for everybody. I mean, not just your husband. I mean, Tom Brady. Tom Brady gets shit on Twitter. I mean, if Tom Brady's not safe, no one is.
Right.
Have you ever had that experience where someone's come up to you negatively in person? Like, I don't mean asking about a loss. I mean, like, what the hell's wrong with your husband's defense or anything crazy like that?
Thankfully, not in person, probably because they don't know who I am, right? But but definitely on Twitter. I think you and I talked about that a little bit this fall, and it got interesting for sure.
Why are they messaging you? I mean, why bother you though?
I don't know.
Like what did they say? I know we talked about it. I never got a quote. You just said you were getting stuff like.
Yep, one guy wanted me to let my husband know that he's the most hated man in Michigan, and he hoped he got AIDS. That was one of them. So just really, it's like. You kind of have to, we've always sort of laughed at stuff like that. And, I think there's an article at one point that referenced like, hey, Dad, did you know you're a big fat loser? And, people will say things like that, and we'll tease Scottie about it. And we just kind of have a good time with it and try not to take it too seriously. But yeah, those direct messages got a little much this year.
I mean, it's one thing, just as a Michigan State guy, I don't like the negativity. I'm not saying everyone's beyond criticism, but I mean the extent and the temperature of it sometimes.
Yes.
Even in general with the coach, like even if you're not personal, but just it can be so venomous. But once you're messaging the spouse, I feel like you're kind of like I'm kind of out on somebody that would do something like that, because I've had bad days on Twitter before, believe me, and people remind me. I've never messaged someone's spouse and been like, hey, fuck your husband or to hell with your wife or whatever. I think that's crazy. But I think in general, the Michigan State fan base seems to be pretty supportive and positive, right?
I think so, especially, when I'm with Scottie, if we're out in public, nobody's ever said anything bad. And people come up and talk to him and say nice things. And so that's really nice. So we haven't had like in-person stuff. It's a lot easier to critique somebody behind a screen, right? So that's just, I guess, par for the course. That's just kind of how it goes, and you just deal with it, I guess.
You guys seem to have it figured out, because I mean, I'm gonna have to have like a little powwow with you after and get your advice, because my mentions, I don't know if you've ever looked at these, but my mentions are so toxic. I mean, I can like kind of poke at Michigan on something like they're arguing about a replay review, and people are like finding pictures of me with my wife and like photoshopping them and stuff.
Wild.
It's crazy, but it's just like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, right.
But and believe me, I'm not at your husband's level, profile-wise, even close. I'm not at even close to Dick Vitale, but my experience has been the same too, where, especially in East Lansing, I get recognized a lot, and no one has ever come up to me and like, hey, F you, but they will on Twitter daily.
Wild, right? It's wild. It just, it's, fans are passionate, and thank God they are, right? Like, what's better than a passionate fan? Not much, but, sometimes it gets over the line, and, maybe that person just had a bad day. That, I guess that's kind of how I take it. Like, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't message somebody's spouse, but maybe they had a really bad day. And I just try to look at it as like, well, they love Michigan State, and there's the silver lining. Everything has a silver lining, and that's it for me. They love Michigan State, and we're lucky to have the passionate fans we have.
Well, I agree with you on that part. I got to tell you, some of the people in my DMs and mentions, they're having a lot of bad days because it's like 6 out of the 7 days a week, and I don't know if they they rested on the seventh day like God or what was going on. But yeah, it is kind of wild. But I did see it start to transition, in particular, your guys' case and your husband's case mid-season, and that it started to kind of flow in a more positive direction. I do want to get into that later, but I'm curious more right now for the family dynamic with the kids that you guys have and all the duties that you guys have. I know you said he's more quality over quantity by default. Yes. He can't really help that. But is there ever a time where you're kind of sitting there on a Tuesday night and all 4 of your kids are asking you questions? I have 3, so I've had it, and you're just like, is there a little bit of resentment there? Like a little bit of like, come on, like, go be an accountant or something.
Maybe years ago, like in the beginning when things were just, life was just tougher. It's harder with young kids. Our kids are 10, 12, 15, and 17.
I do it too.
We just had a birthday.
Yeah.
So they're older, and life is just easier. We're kind of an easy street. We've got a driver and almost another driver. So I have a lot of help. My mom lives with us, which is amazing. And so I have that help now. But early on in our marriage, when we were living away from family and, you're alone. You move to a new place, and, thank goodness for other coaches' wives, because you have, you're alone. You don't have family, but you have a built-in support system. And that's really, especially with younger kids. And I think, I see it now with the younger people on our staff. They all kind of lean on each other. They get together, lots of play dates. And that's what we did too. We made it work because all of us were in the same position. All of our husbands were gone. And so it was just us, and it worked, and it was fun. It was a great phase of life. And, we met really good friends and spent a lot of time. Those wives that we were with back in our earlier days, still some of my best friends today.
You've retained those friendships.
Absolutely, yeah.
That angle's interesting, too. My best friend is a pro hockey player. He's with the Blackhawks now, but I think they're like his 6th or 7th team. But, by proxy, really good friends with his wife. And, I'm paraphrasing her a little bit, but she was saying last summer, like, yeah, my friendship group kind of changes every year or every 2 years, every 3 years as he's moved around the league. And you've been, I think it's 9 states you've lived in?
I think it is.
With your husband, right?
Yeah, I think it is.
So I know you're keeping some of these friendships along the way, but is it a little bit like, I just got my book club rolling, or I just got this, my mom does like a game night with her friends, but my dad isn't transient in his job, so he's done the same thing forever. Is that like kind of frustrating, the constant like, we got a call, I got to go join Mel at Michigan State. We just got situated here in Kansas. Like, what's that like?
Yeah, it's bittersweet for sure. We've had a couple stops where we've been 1 year. I think 3 stops where we've been, 1 and then moved on. A couple where we've been 2. Kansas was a 1 year, and we loved Kansas. It was a really wonderful stop for us. We had the best neighbors ever who will be our friends till the day I die. And so that was hard, because we did kind of, it takes a minute. Like, you get established with your coaches' wives and you have that, but then you got your kids in school. And so you're meeting moms there and you meet a couple friends and you get along and you kind of get a group and then it is time to go. And that it's like, oh, bummer, because these seem like really good girls, but every place has really good people. That's what I've learned about this. Every place has really good people, and we're just really lucky to have lots of these people in our lives.
I mean, that is the advantage of the coaching situation. And for, in my buddy's case, it's the players' wives, not coaches' wives that they're hanging out with. But it's kind of like an unwillful joining of a fraternity or sorority. It's like, hey, like it or not, here's your 20 friends. But, they do tend to have each other's backs. And, so even though, yes, it is hard to move around, if you were, like I said, an accountant or a military wife that's moving around, it's a little bit harder. At least you kind of have that built in, I would think, kind of coterie with like, okay, there's all these other people in this similar situation, right?
For sure. And oftentimes when you make that move, you're making it to a staff that somebody, or maybe, you're bringing somebody with you. Like when we came here, Scottie brought his assistant from Kansas, and we love them, and they're not with us any longer. They moved on, but it was great, having somebody we knew here. And because it was a new staff to us, we didn't know anybody on staff coming here, which has happened before, and it all works out, and as it did here.
You're Midwest. You said you're from Minnesota.
I am. Can you hear it?
Yeah. Well, you're at home. I mean, it's not Minnesota, but we're cousins. Michigan has the same kind of northern. It's like the northern twang, and they're very similar. So you didn't have maybe the same culture shock. I've talked to people that came from Texas, and they had been in Georgia, Texas, California, but never north of kind of the midline. So at least you didn't have that culture shock at all. But I know you mentioned before the show when we were just talking off camera that you had, a news background, which immediately kicked up my senses because that's my, not news, but broadcasting journalism. That's what I was, trained in with school and love and I'm passionate about. But is there a conversation that you had to have with Scottie? I don't know, when you were dating or when you were first married or whatever it was, where, okay, he's a football coach, going in, this is the deal. I mean, you can be the best coach in the world. You'll have 7 stops. Bill Belichick coached in 3 spots. I mean, even he moved around for a while. Did you have a conversation with Scottie where, like, look, I got my broadcasting thing I want to do. You had to consciously give it up, right?
Yes, I did, and that was okay. It was something I wanted to do, but ultimately, we knew we wanted a family, and we knew that we wanted me to stay home and raise the kids, and so that opportunity arose. We had Ava at the end of our first year of marriage, and our head coach. We were at a little D2 school in Missouri Southern, the Lions, and our head coach died mid-season. Had a massive heart attack in the offices. Coaches did CPR, like tragic, and we were really tight. A little Division II. I mean, I think Scottie slept under his desk some nights. Like, it was a tough program, but just a small little school, and we were all really close, and that coach died. And, so the new coach comes in at the end and fires everybody because that's what happens. Yeah. And we ended up at Michigan Tech. This is our second stint in Michigan. And there just wasn't anywhere to work up there. And so that's when I started staying home, and we just kind of made it work, and I've been home ever since, and really happy about that. I've done a little, writing on the side here and there, but for the most part, just been home. But it was a conscious decision, and as we were getting married, we just knew that was our plan at some point, and I was happy to stay home and be a mom.
I appreciated my mom a lot more when I saw what having kids is like and how much work my wife does, to help run things. So I'm just amazed because I think I could do the primary caregiver thing with multiple kids, but I'd probably be pretty irritable all the time, or at least a lot of the time. And, I'm just in awe of, I know it's cliche. My wife thinks it's patronizing, but it really is like the most important job. I think the hardest job. So you're with me. I'm going to tell my wife that Brooke Hazelton's got my back because it's not meant to be patronizing. It's true. It's like, and I think, and I didn't realize it until I was a parent, but it's like, it's hard even with the tandem. And that's why I said earlier, like having your husband gone or on the road or just very busy. I have respect for you. I don't know how you do that, but I'm impressed by that.
Well, thank you. You would do it too. It's just kind of what it is. But I agree. It is the most important job. We're raising the future, right? And I hope I'm doing a good job.
Your kids look wonderful.
They're
just
pretty
the pictures
nice.
I saw, it looks like a very wholesome family. They look cool to me. Yeah, and I'm with you. I would do it too. If my wife gets offered a job as a coach at Michigan State, I'll stay at home with the kids, honey. I'll live vicariously through her. So I'm curious. We talked about the family angle, sort of the pressures on you, if at all, of, for lack of a better term, avoiding controversy. It's sort of a politician's wife conundrum where, the politician could be one of the 5 on the planet that are, squeaky clean, but then of course the spouse goes and has like a mean tweet or something. So we pulled a couple examples of other coaches' wives getting into hot water. I'm curious kind of your reflecting on that and how it affects your behavior at all if you have to think about that stuff. Ben, can you run that real quick?
This video is lighting up social media. It shows the head coach's wife kissing players on the University of Florida football team. It's a game day tradition. Some are calling it gross and disrespectful.
I think a high five is cool. I'm going to say no bueno on the hugs and kisses.
Sports blogger Karen Phillips accuses the coach's wife of sexually harassing the football team.
Of course, grown-ups can get just as carried away. Her name is Lynn Marshall, and she's the wife of the coach of the Wichita State team. Security reportedly had to be called 3 times after she was allegedly overheard screaming curses at the opposing team, Kentucky. Witnesses said she was escorted out after security came back a 4th time.
His wife, Shelley, had a little message for you saying, newsflash, or maybe not, he gets none of my attention, should get no one else's either. I don't listen or watch him or his network anymore.
Yeah, you know what was interesting? The reason why you couldn't put that tweet up is that after Urban was asked about it Monday, Shelley Meyer deleted the tweet.
When your husband left his coaching job, where did he come and work? To the very network that you said you no longer want to watch. You didn't have a problem with ESPN then. So why do you have a problem with ESPN now? Because something happened at The Ohio State that every network under the sun discussed, and somehow we're the problem?
So small sampling, but there's a ton of those stories out there where coach can do anything. Now, Urban Meyer actually did do some stuff, but and the coach can just be minding his own business, and the spouse says something. Is that something that you have to even think about? Like, I have to watch what I say on like Facebook or something, or is it just kind of whatever, say la vie?
Yeah, it is. And it's new. Like, it hasn't. Scottie's had many different jobs, and he's been a coordinator in the Big 12. He's been a linebacker coach in the NFL, but none as big of a stage as Michigan State, right? And so, I think twice often about what I tweet or write, or I don't ever want to be the cause of a problem at his job ever. That I don't ever want to be. I'm his support. I'm his wife. I don't ever want to cause a problem like that. So yeah, I definitely think long and hard. That video with her kissing the
yeah.
Now, I don't think she was sexually harassing. I think she's a mom, and you look at those boys like they're your kids, and you truly feel love for them. Like, I love those kids. I like Jacoby decided to come back, and I was like, oh yeah, like I feel it in my heart, just like their moms do. Maybe not as strong, but that's just another mom kissing a kid. That's all that was.
Oh, I agree. And for the record, I was ready to kiss Jacoby when he said he was coming back too. So I can relate to her in that regard. So you relate to the mom kissing. You don't relate to the wife screaming, being confronted 4 times by security. So you're not at Spartan Stadium, F-bombing the refs. And...
I am not at Spartan Stadium F-bombing any refs. I have been known to maybe, ask a neighboring football fan to... not call players' names and not maybe be as crude around our kids. We're seated we're in the mix of everybody. I mean, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good.
We're together, but we're in the mix of season ticket holders and things like that. And so, it's tough to hear for sure. There was one time this year, a guy kind of really went off on one of our players, and it's hard to hear, like those kids, they're just kids trying to do their best, right? And that's really where, if I ever would get mad at somebody, that's when it's going to happen, that they're saying something awful about one of the kids. Like, I get that. You have a real feeling of protection for these kids, and you want them, just like your own kid, like you just want them to do their best, and they want to do their best, and it's tough when you hear somebody shouting negatively at them, grown men shouting at kids playing football. It's wild to me.
Yes. And here's the thing that's what makes me think about is you're talking about, obviously Twitter was a thing for a while, people messaging you, whatever, idiot fan, whatever, that's going to be in perpetuity forever. That predates Twitter. Unfortunately, that's always going to be a component. But you guys, and I know you can't get into the nitty gritty. I told Darian, I know you can't get into the nitty gritty when Darian Harris was here. But the Michigan incident this year, I think you guys had that in spades in terms of that negativity and people going after the kids. I mean, Xavier Henderson, and you have to take my word for it, go on the guy's Instagram right now and see, you may have to scroll back a couple photos, but see what people were saying on his post in that week. Xavier Henderson was the guy that broke up the scuffle and told the guys to get to the locker room. He was facing racist remarks and threatening remarks. Not I'm going to kill you, but like, hope you get killed kind of stuff. Hope you get run over. That was the guy who, and not that anyone deserved it, but that was the guy who was breaking it up. I mean, did you have some sense, did you see it in your household at all where everyone's kind of coming down at us or on us and coming after us? And they got this wrong. Jacoby Woodman's a great guy. He's not this terrible person people are saying. Did that weigh on you at all?
It did. My heart hurt for the kids because like X, what a great kid. He is a great kid. And I saw that stuff too. And how sad that somebody would think those things, number one, and then say them, number two, and number three, at a college kid. Like, come on. I'll never understand that. But yeah, the negative stuff about Jacoby's a wonderful kid. I mean, he is. These are really good kids who had, maybe an off night. They made a mistake, and that happens, right? Like, that just happens. They're still good kids. My heart hurt for the negativity they were facing because I know that they're not inherently bad, right? They're good kids who got caught up in something. That's all.
Well, this is our 75th episode. It's not always a solo guest. We've had some repeats, but we've had, with our multi-panels, probably over 100 guests. But I had Jacoby on with Darius and X 5 or 6 days before the game this year. And I said afterward that night that Jacoby Woodman is either first or second on my nicest people I've ever had in list. I mean, really only Kenneth Walker's even close. They're similar level. Like Jacoby, yes sir, no sir. I told him, like, hey, Eddie, soldier, you're fine. He was so polite and nice and open, hey, you can ask me whatever. And honestly, he was one of the one or two nicest people I've ever had come through. And then obviously, I'm not going to get into the stuff that happened in that, 15 seconds or whatever it was, but suddenly he's not in our house, but outside of our house, a pariah. And I'm not anyone's mom. I don't have any official affiliation with the university, but I felt defensive too as someone that met him and cares about the school. And I had to think that week was just tough for you guys because, and this is the key point, you didn't respond. Nobody responded. I'm astounded that all the players, coaches, wives, administrators, their wives, their friends, there wasn't one person with a direct tie, either they're employed or their spouses to the university, that came out and commented on that. You guys had the most Fort Knox thing ever. So, did you feel kind of like, I want to push back on this, but I can't? What was that like?
Yeah, you see all that stuff and like the devil on their shoulders saying, just write this back. But, you can't, like you want to. It was like Fort Knox, I think, but it's because, I think mostly because anything we would have said would have been wrong, right? It wouldn't have mattered. So that's probably the biggest reason why nothing was said. It wouldn't have been okay, no matter which way it went.
Well,
right?
the proof of that is within 24 hours, you had an apology, suspensions, admission of culpability. And it was still like, thug this and, renegade program that. It's like you did everything by the book. John Bacon's a friend of mine. He's on the Michigan side and said, that he didn't say. He reported things that other people said that were unflattering. He's the Michigan guy. People hate that I even have him on. This is not a Michigan State show, believe it or not. But he was saying, Michigan State handled this perfectly. Like, they did everything perfectly. That's the Michigan guy. He's a Michigan alum. He's a Michigan writer. He loves Michigan. He defended us, and I appreciated that. But it's like, you said it didn't matter because we did handle everything perfectly. And, you showed restraint. The coaching staff showed restraint. I didn't. I was very passionate about this stuff, but I had to think, I was curious for your take on that. It's got to be frustrating because it's like, you can't be the one to talk. Right. Like, it has to be Mel Tucker, basically. Like, Scottie couldn't. It would be wrong for you can't have the a coordinator come out when the coach is Fort Knox. So that had to have been frustrating, I would think.
Yeah, it was. Thank goodness for people like you who did the talking for us, right? So
yes, yeah. Believe I'm not going to name names, but I did have people message me with the football program and one with the just university on the academic side administration, just saying, like, thank you for talking about this stuff because, we're so hamstrung. And I know they felt unfairly maligned. And even if people said, look, this incident was bad and we take responsibility for it, nobody should be out there ripping on Xavier Henderson. That's an objective wrong, right? Even if you want to burn all the involved kids to the ground, which is absurd. But at least that has some like correlation and connection and rational thought, and they felt really hamstrung. And, I don't know if there was one company-wide or university-wide email with you guys where it was like, hey, everyone be quiet, but nobody talked.
Yeah, no, there wasn't. But I think everybody just kind of knew, it was such a tough situation. And, it was tough. But X is a great kid. And that's
love that
really,
guy.
really sad that people treated him like that. I think it just, that just allowed the rivalry to keep being as mean as it was. I've never seen as crazy of a rivalry as this one. Every place we've been. This is intense.
You've been around the country, so that says something.
Yeah.
This is should we cancel the rivalry for a year? Did you see that proposal?
I saw people were talking about that. Yeah.
You don't think we should cancel the game next year?
No.
Yeah, if we had won and we had Paul Bunyan not with a blindfold that's a maze blindfold in my studio, I'd be like, let's take a 5-year break and we'll just keep him in the trophy case for 5 years. But because we have to go get him back next year, so I'm a little bit of a hypocrite. I'd be a little bit more open to that. I'm not amenable to it while they have the trophy. But yeah, it is interesting, and the negativity. We talked about it earlier in a general matter with Twitter and stuff. And I mean, people were commenting. I would be talking about like the basketball team. Something about a complaint about the basketball team, general, or saying, hey, I don't think Michigan stacks up well against us this year or whatever. There were a couple examples, totally unrelated, nothing vitriolic at all. And my mentions are like, why don't you worry about your thug football program? So what are we doing? Like, what are we even talking about here? But that's I could push back, and I did it. I've made fun of these people, and that did not help, actually. Believe it or not, that did make things worse. So maybe the Fort Knox approach is the way to go, but it's not in my wiring to just sit there and take that. But you have kids. I dropped my daughter off right before Christmas break to school, and there's a kid that wears a Michigan shirt. He's in the lineup right next to her, and a lot of times I have like a state polo on or something. It's the morning, and he's always chirping me, this like 6-year-old, and he's 6, whatever. Like, I don't care. But my daughter said that, the kid wasn't being mean, but he was teasing her after the Michigan State game this year, like kind of, ha, what happened to you, tell your dad, ha, or whatever. Yeah. And she didn't care. She was like, whatever. But it wasn't like a bullying scenario. I'm not trying to say that. But my point is, like, kids are aware of this stuff. She's 6, and the kid is like, ha, Michigan State lost. You have, I think, was your youngest 6, you said?
10.
10, okay, I don't know where I got that. So, obviously they're even more aware, and kids are, unfortunately, progressively meaner and stuff. Is that something, I guess, one of your kids ever come home and said, Mom, not specifically related to the Michigan game, but just in general, Mom, somebody said this, and like they're crying or they're upset, or is that something you deal with?
Yeah, not really. The boys, our boys are 10 and 12, and I think, like last year when we beat Michigan, even with any rivalry, we've always kind of had a little talk with them, like, don't brag, don't be boastful, like, what would Jesus do, basically, right? Yeah. Like, do that. And so, we just have little reminders about that. And so, like, this year when we didn't win, we just reminded them, like, it might happen. Not everybody has the same rules, right? And I think they got a little rousing, not bad. I think the worst part was just, my daughters are on social media, so I had them get off Twitter, and
they're in high school.
Point. Yeah.
Yeah, they're right in the wheelhouse for people being mean. I hate to say it, but
yeah. Friends at school, everything was fine. It was just they saw that Twitter stuff too, and that was hard for them, but. They can be off Twitter and they don't have to see it. So for the most part, in person with friends, everybody's pretty good.
I mean, you're raising them right. My parents never had, and they're wonderful people, but they never had the conversation with me about don't go peacocking down the hallway. So if Michigan State ever won, I was like flapping my wings, and I could not be more showy. But of course, I didn't have the onus of being a coach's kid, so I'm not going to reflect poorly upon anybody but myself. But I've always been like, we talk about the wife angle. I have been fascinated by the kid angle too. I mean, because I went to school with, he was in my class, Mike Ilitch III, his since passed grandpa, owned the Red Wings, Tigers, Olympia Entertainment, multi-billionaire. And he was a great guy. Everyone loved him. There were times like the Tigers were really bad and people would say stuff. mostly like kind of behind his back. But ever since then, I've always thought like it's got to be tough, like because you have such a public, in his case it was his grandpa, maybe not quite as bad as if it's your dad, but even if you guys just lose and the defense played great, it's like you're still kind of in that bubble.
Right,
but
yeah.
so the kids are mostly nice in the Okemos School District or wherever. I don't know. You have to see where you live, but wherever they're at.
We're in a really good school in Lansing, and it's been good.
Good. Yeah, because that was my concern with the kid angle, especially with the Michigan stuff and going on. So the Michigan State fan base perception of Scottie Hazelton, people are starting to come into my camp here. It's the bandwagon. It's starting to hop on. But we grabbed a couple of my tweets this goes back to last year. So I was very early on the Scottie train. Ben, can you roll up our little 3-tweet slideshow? So this is me. This is November. So going on 2 years ago, November 21. I believe in Scottie Hazelton and hope anyone fuming at him takes a breath. The guy has a very good track record. He didn't forget how to coach. This season has been a blast, but we are in the infancy of this thing. He's going to be a big part of what we are doing. Onward. Let's go to the next one. I'm a believer in Scottie Hazelton, really bright guy, a damn good football coach, put in a tough spot since he got here, referring to the recruiting and all the 2020 stuff. Looking forward to that unit's growth. Ben, I think we got one more. Scottie Hazelton, this is me dunking on everybody after things turned around. This is November of this year. Scottie Hazelton took a bunch of guys playing racquetball at IM West and locked up the 16th ranked team on their home field. Apology letters can be mailed to 1855 Place, 550 South Harrison Road. That's the football offices up there. So, my position has not wavered. But especially this year, and there were other examples where because you've seen some of the stuff. I'm a Scottie guy. Like, I think he's going to do a great job here, and I don't think he's had anything to do with any of their deficiencies. But I was getting pushback from people at the time, people that normally like myself. It's like, oh, come on, and we're 73rd in this and 86th in that. And, but people did start to transition. Did you see, even whether it was, the amount of mean DMs you got or just what you kind of stumbled across, did you kind of feel that change this year mid-season as the defense was playing better?
I did, yeah. And before I say any more about that last tweet where Scottie you said something from IM West or
That's
whatever.
where I used to play pickup basketball.
Okay.
It's like the rec center for the students, yeah.
So his mom called me and said, "Did you see that tweet?"
Oh, yeah. I got Mama Hazelton on board.
She was so happy.
Did you show her the other 37?
Yes.
I could print a book for her.
Well, we know you're one of the good ones.
Well, and I'm not a homer, honestly. I'll be honest. I would not be sending you messages, but if I thought that he wasn't good, I would express that I had problems with it.
Sure.
My license plate is TM Izzo. I'm the biggest Tom Izzo fan alive, but I have done entire shows where I'm like, why doesn't he use the transfer portal more? I want him to be more like Mel in that regard. And so, if I didn't think that, I wouldn't say it. There are people out there, Sam Webb on the Michigan side, everything Michigan does is the most wonderful thing ever. That's not me. That's my genuine feeling, and I think I'm going to be vindicated. I'm in the early stages of vindication, but I think I'm going to be vindicated more and more going forward. And this was really, in terms of the public sphere, obviously I know people in my friendship circle that are big fans of Scottie as well, but in terms of people with any type of platform, it was a two-man show, and we're both named Justin. Justin Thind, my buddy, athletic contributor, 24/7 Sports, is another guy that was really defensive of Scottie, in particular this year at the beginning. Ben, can you throw up some of the other Justin's thoughts on this? So this was earlier this year. Quote, most of the complaints levied against Scottie Hazelton aren't fair. When half of your front six is injured and your free safety struggles in coverage, it doesn't matter what Hazelton calls. MSU's biggest weaknesses have been third down defense and scoring defense. Hazelton's unit at Kansas State was second in the nation in the former and first in the Big 12 in the latter. He didn't suddenly forget how to coach. And then you fast forward about a month later, I think it was, Michigan State fans were frustrated by Scottie Hazelton's cushion coverage against Washington, but Minnesota beat guys off the line for 3 touchdown drives and press man coverage the following week. What is left for Hazelton to try? The talent level just isn't there yet, and it's worth noting Mel Tucker's oldest recruits are still inexperienced freshmen and sophomores. So his mentions on those tweets and those articles were not quite as bad as mine because he's a more likable guy maybe. But we got so much shit, but now you're starting to see Scottie Hazelton, redemption, Scottie Hazelton revenge tour. He didn't learn anything in week 6 this year, right? I mean, so you're kind of tethered to the irrational emotions of the fans. Are you able to just completely check out of that? Did it bother him when that stuff was out there?
Yeah, no, he doesn't pay attention to any of that. He is laser focused. He really is. He's not a social media guy. He does it for recruiting, and that's about it. Really, the only negative things he hears is what we tease him about. So, but yeah, that was hard. It was, because there were injuries, there were, circumstances outside of his control, right? Kind of like Justin said, it was a tough start to the season and through the season. But I think I definitely felt it changing, and just the feeling for him changing on social media and stuff. And so I think, I don't know, the season ended, it went, when kids got back and things got back to normal, it went better. And I think we were still kind of handicapped throughout the season, even when people were back. We still had suspensions and things like that, you know? So it was a challenging season, but I'm glad to see things like you and Justin saying that, because that is true. He didn't forget to coach, I promise.
No, and it's funny because, and your thing about tunnel vision rings true with my experience in other conversations. The show's out there. I'm 99% sure this conversation happened on camera, but I'm always talking to people before and after. I can't remember. But when I had Jacoby, Darius, and X on the show 5 days before that Michigan game, I asked them, you guys were here. Jacoby wasn't, but the other two, you guys were here for this 11-2 season. It was, everyone was in a great mood. Nobody saw it coming. And now you're in the midst of, at the time, I can't remember their exact record, but it was a losing record, I'm pretty sure, 500 or whatever it was. It was not going as well. And I asked them, have you seen a difference in Mel Tucker? Have you seen a difference in your coach, Scottie? And all of them said, or both of them, I should say, that had both experiences, said, not really. Mel Tucker, Scottie Hazelton, all our staffs, you would not know if I dropped you in to a meeting in 2021 and then I dropped you into a meeting in 2022 and you didn't know which was which. You wouldn't know what year you were in. Yeah. There was no, Scottie's the exact same as he was in the building. I don't know if he came home and was a little bit more, irritable or something, but you kind of have to just keep rolling, right?
For sure. And that, I think that's totally true. He just, and Tuck too, they do it. They do what they do, and they are who they are, and that's what it is. And they do their job. They're working. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes we don't get a W and sometimes we do, but the work doesn't change, right?
He found his how to coach book or whatever, right? Mid-season, he found his X's and O's book or something. But that's what people say. Now, you can have grace, and you guys do have grace, and you should have grace. I don't have that kind of grace. I was dunking on everybody when the defense was playing better, and I look forward to continuing to do that going forward. But yeah, you can't really get into that stuff. Let Odell Brenham and I handle that. Odell Brenham and I will grab the pitchforks for you. But I was disappointed to see some of that stuff, from our fans, especially really early. I thought it was really, really dumb last year. I pulled some of the examples of me calling people out last year. It's like, guys, been here for 5 seconds. I love D'Antonio too, but Hubbard was a little bare. Recruiting was way down. Mel Tucker's recruiting via Zoom. I'm sure Scottie was participating in the Zoom recruiting, pitches as well. And it's like, can we give this guy 5 seconds? It's like, I don't see some stacked bunch of NFL first rounders back there, and the coach is just fumbling around and can't figure it out. But I don't know. You have grace. I have a little bit less grace. I'll try to channel you more often going forward. But and that's the thing with that job is if a plumber has a bad day at the office, no one's messaging the plumber on Twitter. They're definitely not messaging the plumber's wife, because they won't even know how to find the plumber's wife, and even if they did, they're not going to message his wife, presumably. You're kind of victim to or recipient of, if it's positive, sort of the experience that your husband has at work. I think that's
for sure. And sometimes it's really fun that you're right, I'm the victim or the recipient, right? And it's as much as it sort of sucks, it's so fun too. I love reading all the nice things about Scottie. That's that's so fun because I think I think he's the best person ever, the best coach, the best father, the best husband, just the best dude. And so I love that when other people can see that he's great, right? But so I love reading all the good stuff. And so I guess if I'm going to accept that, I have to accept the bad stuff too, right?
I guess. I mean, I just hate when it's in-house. If somebody, from a different fan base wants to make fun of your coach, that's part of the game. I hate kind of the in stuff when it gets really, for one, it was just dumb to begin with. But even if it's warranted, like, don't message someone's wife. Like, come on, grow up. And then think of talking about your husband. I don't know what other people can think whatever they want. Don't say anything negative in front of the three guys I had on my show. Because, I mean, Darius was ready to throw down. And I have had guests on it. I'm not going to name names. I would never betray the trust. But I've had guests on my show that I asked them something. And they gave a wonderful political answer. And then after, it's like, hey, man, I don't really. It's like, it's not that they're lying, but it's a political, it's couched. That was not the case there. They were talking about this before the show, after the show. They were ready to go. Ben, can you throw a little excerpt from our show with those guys? And let's see what that looked like a few months back. There's a perception now that Michigan State has to get rid of Scottie Hazelton. That he sucks. He's horrible. You got to blow him out. I don't care what he did at Buffalo, Kansas State, get him the hell out of town. I think this is ridiculous. His track record, relatively short in that role prior, but was impressive. I think, injuries aside, you and I may disagree. You say, you cited a lot of injuries. I would cite, I don't know that they have the horses back there to function. Isn't it insanely premature to even be talking about this? But B, even if he's ultimately not the guy, prematurity aside, I think he is. Am I crazy to think that he will ultimately vindicate me and make everyone out there seem like a bunch of Moses Fran? I, to the point of maybe hypocrisy, have defended Scottie Hazelton. I don't think he's the problem. I do not think he forgot how to coach. And I'm not just saying this because you guys are here. I have tweets about it. I've done shows about it. I am a Hazelton defender.
Coach Hazelton is a great coach. He cares. He loves football. He loves us.
Coach Hayes, he's a really good coach. He does a good job with, explaining everything to us, keeping us all on the same page.
Yeah, there was a part two where it's not in that run where Darius Snow, he basically described Scottie like he's John Nash in A Beautiful Mind. Like he's just like the most brilliant football mind ever. And that's the thing. It's like, what do your players say about you? The players, and Darian said the same thing to me on and off camera. The players love that guy. That's not always the case. There's a lot. I've had players, different programs, this program prior to Mel Tucker say they didn't like this position coach. They had issues with this guy. They really love this guy. That has to help even when the fans are negative to have the buy-in in-house, right?
Oh, for sure. And I think one of the things with Scottie, like what you see is what you get. If what you see is what you get. He's out there right now. He'd come here and be on this mic, and he'd be just like he was before we started. And I think that really is valuable. And it speaks volumes to players. They don't have to wonder. They don't have to wonder if he's telling them the truth. He's a truth teller. What you see is what you get. And I think that just makes them feel secure in their coach, right? So,
and that's reflective of, what I hear about Mel Tucker too. I reported when Jeremy Bernard, obviously other side of the ball, wide receiver, was transferring, and he went, and this is according to my reporting, which I trust my reporting based on the two people I talked to. But, Jeremy went to Mel Tucker and said, look, like, I don't hate it here, but I got to get more assurances I'll be on the field. And Mel's like, well, I'm not promising you that. It's not because I don't think that you're great, but I don't promise anybody that. There's nobody here. It's the whole, compete to stay thing. And I think that's kind of Scottie's mold too, is I'll tell you exactly what you need to know. I'm not going to, kind of butter you up. I'll tell you how I can help you. And he seems to be, as even just meeting him for 10 minutes. He just seems to be kind of, there's no performance there at all. Right. He's not performative. He's very kind of cut right to the chase, right?
He really is. Yeah. He's very direct, and how great, you just talked about Jeremy, and how great to have a coach be that honest with you.
Yeah.
For Tuck to say, that he can't make that promise. Lots of coaches would say, sure. Yeah.
100%.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah. You're not better off having the kid go, even if you think in your head, if you're Mel Tucker, this kid has a 20% chance of helping us, which is, I mean, in his case, that's way too low. But let's just say it still behooves you to be like, oh, you're playing next year to retain the 20% versus 0 if he's not here. So I respect that. And there were some people saying, oh, like, come on, why didn't they use him more? Whatever, but it's like they should have given him some assurances. Everyone knows. Someone said everyone knows he's going to be wide receiver 2 behind Coleman anyway. Just tell him that. But that would kind of betray the entire ethos of the coaching staff here. I respect that. And there are some downsides to that, but I think on a long enough timeline, you benefit from that honesty.
For sure. And I call these players kids, but they're men. They need to hear the truth, and they should want to hear the truth, and I'm sure they do, and I'm sure they appreciate it too. That these are kids growing into men, and you have to treat them like that, right? Like,
that's the recruiting trail stories I hear. I mean, Keaton Hauser was on the show telling me about this, like, and a little bit off air too. Of they're selling Michigan State, and here's how we can help you, but there's no like kind of sort of shadiness or, stick with us, I'm getting you in by year 2. Like no one, I mean, Caton said, no one promised me anything other than an equal opportunity. Right. Like that's the only, and there's sort of faith in that. It's like, look, if I go and take care of what I need to take care of, I'll be on the field. There's not only is there not favoritism, there's so almost maniacally anti-favoritism there.
Yeah, I think it really promotes hard work, right? Like, if you're just expecting, if you just think, hey, I'm going to be number 2, I'm going to be number 1, are you working as hard? I don't know. Maybe you are, but if you don't know, maybe that promotes extra work. I don't know.
We need some bluntness in the fan base telling these morons. I saw a guy when I was looking. I was 90% of the way to using it in the show tonight, but I don't want to put this guy on blast. But there was somebody that had a tweet of it when I was looking for something totally unrelated to this. It was mid-year, it was like early October, mid-October, saying you absolutely have to fire Scottie Hazelton. This is ridiculous. He has to go. And then he had a tweet, which I looked up after stumbling across the first one. I'm like, I wonder what else this guy said about Hazelton. And it was like 5 or 6 weeks later, you absolutely have to keep Scottie Hazelton here. Like you can't let that guy look at the improvement. And we saw what happened. And it's like, if I had acted on your impulse, he would already be gone. And this decision, because he was like mad that someone else was saying like, oh, I'd move on from the coordinators. It's like, dude, 5 weeks ago, you were like, he has to go. And you are kind of like at the whims of these, roller coaster crazy fans. But yeah.
It's the passion, right? It goes back to the passion. You have to appreciate that. But I think I know which one you're talking about. I saw that too.
You saw it. I mean, I wasn't even looking for this guy. I stumbled across it. I was like, he's got his real name on there, which I automatically respect that. Even if you say something dumb, people know that's my cause celeb. And I get messages from people DMing me saying, look, I can't be out there, man. Like, I work for this firm, I work for a big firm or whatever. It's like, that's fine. Don't call people thugs then. Yeah. Like, I mean, and you don't have to worry about it. Like, It's like, I have an employer too. Like, I have kids I care about. I don't want to embarrass them. And, 10 years from now, someone Googles their dad and I said something ridiculous. And maybe I'm already guilty of that in some regard. But, like, it drives me nuts. So this person actually had their real name on there. So it's like, he wasn't messaging you that I know of. I don't know. We'll talk after.
He wasn't.
Yeah. So it's, but it's just funny. It's like, hey, jackass, if I had listened to you, this guy would already be gone. I mean, we had that. Ben, do we have that, the slideshow about Narduzzi? So Pat, do you know who Pat Narduzzi is?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, not direct predecessor, but a couple of years before he's currently the head coach at Pitt. Yeah. He was our best defensive coordinator. And this was, 2009 in particular, but for a couple of years there, everybody wanted this guy like on a stake. I mean, everybody hated Pat Narduzzi in East Lansing. And it was kind of the same stuff. It's like the recruiting wasn't there. It was just starting to pick up. Everyone wanted him gone. Ended up becoming one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. Michigan State fans flipped to where they're having panic attacks that someo's going to poach him, which eventually they did. He kept getting raises. Ben, do we have that? I can't remember if we pulled that or not. We do. So this was Moses Fram. What a name. That is his real name, too. This is Moses Fram in 2011. Fuck Pat Narduzzi and fuck Dan Roche, our offensive coordinator. Get some new defensive and offensive coordinators now. So that's September of 2011. Going to January. Fuck is Texas A&M about to hire Pat Narduzzi because there was a rumor Texas A&M was interested. This guy's saying, same guy, a couple months later, what the fuck? Why are they even looking at this guy? Let's fast forward. January 2012, Please don't let Narduzzi go. We must pay the man.
Oh.
This is later at the end of that year, 2012. Narduzzi pulls himself out of the Boston College head coaching position. Thank God.
Oh,
Look at Moses Fran. Was that the last Moses Fran, Ben, or do we got more Moses?
That poor guy. He's really...
That it? I mean, but that was the thing, and you can see that. Oh, 2014. We're probably going to lose Narduzzi this year. I'm sad, but I'm also happy for him. He's earned it. This is the last one. This is after he's gone for Pitt, and Pitt's number 1 in sacks, number 7 in total defense. This is a reporter at Pitt talking about how great the Pitt defense is doing, and Moses Fran chiming in 4 years after, wanting the guy dead. God, I miss you, Narduzzi. And that's what the 6 or 7 act play. But I think we're kind of like on the second or third Moses tweet now. Like, where are you at on the Moses timeline?
Where's Moses today? I haven't
Moses'
heard from him.
account. It's funny you ask. I looked because Moses, we pulled that from a different show I did like a year ago, and then we kind of recycled it. I went to get his Scottie Hazelton thoughts, and he has since gone private. I don't know if it's because of my show, because he was public when I pulled him, but I have no idea what he thinks about Scottie. I should try to follow him. He's got like a protected account or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I'd be curious if he's like, it'd be funny if he's, do you think he learned? I don't know. I mean, because if he's out there saying this guy's got to go, let's get rid of him regarding your husband, I would want to throw that graphic at him and be like, hey, maybe he's learned. Hey, guys, I was really hard on Narduzzi, and I got to give this stuff time, but I don't know. I'd probably give him a little bit too much credit. So I want to wrap there in terms of the body of the show. I know you've never missed an episode of our show. We do, so you already know this, of course. But we do a quick speed round. It's similar to word association, but you can talk for more than 2 seconds. We're just going to hit a couple of real quick ones. You got a couple more minutes? Is that okay?
You got it, yeah.
Let's run the speed round, Ben. All right, I don't want anyone to stake you out, Brooke, so I'm hoping I'm not putting you in a bad spot here. But East Lansing or East Lansing area date night, like where are you going? Because the options are a little bit limited. I mean, no offense, that's my favorite place on earth, but like where are you going, Scottie? Hey, we're going out for a date. Like, do you have a spot up there?
You know what? Sort of. We live in DeWitt, and the Looking Glass, it's called the Looking Glass Restaurant, and it's an old church that's been renovated to a bar restaurant, and that's my favorite place close to us.
It's in DeWitt?
In DeWitt, yeah.
I don't think I've even heard of it.
It's a brewery, so they have great brewed beers, and it's really cute.
Oh, nice. I'll have to check it out. Yeah, I've honestly never even heard of it, but yeah, it sounds awesome. The options are a little limited in East Lansing, but yeah, you go out to DeWitt, you got some options. Your favorite state, other than Michigan, because I know I don't want to bias I know you got to say Michigan, but other than Michigan, you've lived in 9.
Yeah.
What's your favorite state that you've lived in other than Michigan?
I get asked that question a lot. Like, which one have we loved the best? And I always say Florida. Okay, I'll say Florida had the best weather, loved that. But every state has something great, and we always try to take advantage of that. Like when we were at USC, we went to Disney. When we lived in Florida, we did the Disney. When we lived in Reno, we made sure to go to Tahoe. And Kansas didn't really have anything.
You had great neighbors.
We had great neighbors. Yeah. That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
Didn't really have a destination, but we loved it, and we loved the people. And so every state, when we were in North Dakota, we were an hour from my family, so the weather sucked, but my family was near. Every place has been really wonderful, but the weather in Florida definitely was the best.
That was the Jaguar stop, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I can't fault you for liking Florida, especially this time of year. But do your kids have a kind of like a favorite? Mom, why can't we go back to fill in the blank?
I think, my kids asked to go back to Wyoming. The boys did the other day, but none of our friends are there. They associate it with the friends we had there, but they're all gone. So, I think probably Florida, really, because, our oldest was maybe like 10 when we lived there, and we got annual passes to Disney, and we went 27 times our first year.
Oh.
So we take advantage of
They
what
lost
that
money on you
yeah,
guys.
yeah,
Yeah.
we made
Yeah.
money on Disney. The
Yeah.
only people to say so. But yeah, they probably, looking back, they'd probably say Florida just because of that.
Yeah, 10-year-old me would be like Florida for sure. Like the Disney pass especially. So I gotta ask from the female spouse perspective, beard or no beard for your husband, which is like kind of the better look for him?
Beard.
So you like the beard?
I love his beard, and he's probably had it. He grew it in.
Yeah, that was a great. Throw that back up there, Ben. Yeah, that's.
Oh, yeah.
He honestly, he looks like a different person.
He
honestly.
does, doesn't he? No, he was. He started growing it when we lived in Florida, and then I think in Wyoming, the kids came down and said, "Mom, Dad shaved his beard," and I was like, "What? Why would he do that?" And he had, and I was like, "Put it back!" Like, and luckily, it was back in like 2 days time, basically. He grows fast, but yeah, I love his beard.
Okay, yeah, I'd say I can't rock that beard if I wanted to. When I try, it looks like pencil shavings. It does not look attractive at all, and yeah, so I can't rock the beard. But he's so iconic now. It's almost like Michigan State fans would be mad if he lost it now. So I'm glad you're in support.
He wears it well, doesn't he?
Oh yeah. It adds, especially like you got to have a coordinator with some kind of like defining characteristic. I like having like the Ryan brothers were the same thing in the NFL. It's like you have to they have like kind of the long hair. It's Rob Ryan, the long hair, and I like having some like kind of. You gotta have like a personality trait that's reflected somehow like visually in those spots. It's just fun to have a defensive coordinator with a giant beard. I'm glad you're on board, because if you're like, I beg him every day to shave it,
I love it.
Yeah.
And it is very reflective of who he is. He's kind of lumberjacky and outdoorsy, and he's just a dude.
He fits perfectly with the Michigan, state of Michigan, and the keep chopping, and
absolutely.
He fits in perfectly. So we touched on it a little bit, the friends in new places. So I think this might be redundant with our prior discussion, but just the frustration of establishing these new friends constantly. There has to be some friends along the way. I know FaceTime and stuff, but like you've probably not seen some of your best friends for like 5 years, right?
Yeah, that absolutely is true. You meet these women and they become your best friends. I have some of my very best friends are from our early days, and some of them are from our last couple stops, so there's the coaches convention every year that a lot of wives go to, and it's become a little reunion for me and my friends too. I missed it this year, but next year for sure.
So there's a national.
National, yeah.
Really?
So, yeah, it just got done. It was last weekend.
Same place every year, or do they move it around?
They move it around. So it was in Charlotte. That's why we didn't go this year, because
you don't like North Carolina.
I do, but we went to the Charlotte one before. And it was too cold. It just wasn't fun.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, it was a lot of walking around, that's the fun part. But if it's cold out, no, thank you.
Yeah.
So I think it's in Nashville next year. I'll go to that one.
Oh,
but yeah, so we'll meet some friends will go with their husbands, and then the guys just go. It's like every football coach from Division III up to Division I is in Charlotte that weekend, and they drink a lot of beer, and we wives have a nice time, and yeah, it's good.
It's good. It's kind of like an informal reunion for you guys too.
Yeah, for sure.
You have a central location to kind of gather and congregate once a year. That's awesome. We'll finish your last one. We talked around him a little bit, but Mel Tucker. Here's my setup for this. I've met Mel and had a conversation with him in person once, and had a phone conversation with him, so I kind of know him a little bit. People that know him really well have told me that he is, and it's somewhat reflective in my experience, he's much more kind of, not silly, but funny and a little more gregarious than the public sees, because his press conferences, I love the guy. I have multiple paintings of him. There's one over your shoulder. It's a little bit of an ambient experience. He kind of rocks you to bed. He's just not a really dynamic guy in that setting, but you get him in the locker room, and you can see that in the videos that they post publicly. In a personal one-on-one setting, two-on-one, whatever, he tends to be more gregarious. He was talkative with me when I met him. What's your kind of experience with Mel Tucker? What's he like just as a guy?
He's kind. He really is. He and his wife are really wonderful people. We for sure have the best dressed coach in all of college football.
Oh yeah, everyone already. I didn't bring you on for that. Everybody already knows that. But,
gosh, his shoe collection alone, I love it. No, he's great. On recruiting weekends after the dinner, or sometimes we have the dinner in their basketball court at their house, and then there's a social afterwards, and he's, you know, just walking around the whole time, checking on everybody and making sure everybody's good. And yeah, he's a great guy.
Did you
Great
catch
guy.
wind of on a totally unrelated note, did you catch wind of the LSU Mel Tucker stuff last year?
Yeah.
Did that make your wheels turn at all?
You know, I just didn't think, I mean, I don't know how serious all that was. I don't know what that was. It seemed, it never felt like it was going to happen. To me, it feels like Tuck's at Michigan State, and he's committed, and he has a job to do here. And I think that's the impression I get from him, that, you know, he's
I heard the
focused
interest
on
was
that.
real
Yeah.
on the other side.
Was it?
On the other side.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
No, I can't
for
speak.
sure.
I don't know. I don't have a source with Mel or
Yeah.
anything. But LSU really, it wasn't a formal offer on the table. They wanted to meet with them, and there's conflicting on whether they actually had a conversation. I told the source I trust more said that there was a conversation with the agent, but not Mel, and just kind of taking a temperature. And Mel was kind of like, look, have the conversation. That's what my agent's there for. But that's what I was told. I don't know for a fact. But it is interesting because I would think someone like you and, you know, the coach's wives have a little bit of that, here we go again, am I packing up? Like, so.
Yeah, that's kind of, you know, it's like, oh, will we go? Will we stay? Will we go somewhere else? But yeah, I heard about that, but nothing.
Yeah, it didn't seem
I'm sure it doesn't surprise me that they'd have great interest in Tuck. He's a good coach.
Yeah.
And especially after that year we had, you know, that was
Yes.
so fun.
Oh my God! And you know, it was so unexpected, and I was on here saying, like, please, if you go 6-6, I'll throw a parade, and they end up winning 11 games. And yeah, last year was so fun. Well, I'm glad Mel Tucker's here. I am glad your husband is still here as the founder, president, secretary, vice president of the fan club. You know, I think the best times are ahead for this program. As fun as last year was with 11-2, you know, this year was frustrating in a lot of ways, but I think the best is yet to come. I really do with this group.
I do too. I'm excited for next year, and thank you, thank you for having me, and thank you for, you know, being the kind face among some not so kind.
Come on, guys! Like, get it together out there. If anyone sends you any more DMs, and Brett told me the same thing when we were talking about this. I told him I was having you on. He's like, just tell her to have these messages sent to us, and you can be kind.
I appreciate that.
No, it's just, I mean, even if we thought your husband was the worst coach alive, I would still be like, dude, what the hell are you doing? But I'm glad it's shifting, and it is funny because a couple bad apples can really make everyone seem bad. In my text conversations, most people do get it. You know, they get it. Like, it's the program. It's a rebuild. Last year kind of fooled us a little bit. It was almost too good in terms of having any real perspective. But yeah, you guys will be fine. The best is yet to come.
I think so too.
I'm excited.
For sure. It's going to be a really fun year.
Brooke Hazelton, I appreciate you, seriously. Thank you. You
appreciate
came a long
you.
way to be here. And
I had a driver. His name was Scottie.
Was he a good driver? I don't know.
Great driver.
It's a bit of a haul, so I appreciate you coming this way and
thank
late
you.
at night on a weeknight, and
A little
appreciate
date
you.
night for us, you know.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it was the Looking Glass. I don't know if this stacks up to the Looking Glass.
I mean,
but
I think this is all this at Michigan State stuff. I think it's better, right?
the decor is certainly better.
Yeah.
But I don't know about the beer. I think it's like Miller Lite and then a bunch of liquor on that bar counter. But I really appreciate you, and respect to your husband for dutifully waiting outside while we did this thing, and really continued success to you guys, your family.
You.
I give you a lot of credit, a lot of restraint. I would have been out there like Brenda Warner, Kurt Warner's wife back in the day, giving everyone the bird if I were you. You're a better person than me, and I commend you for getting through that with grace, and really wish you guys well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
This is Justin Spiro, Spiro Avenue, with Brooke Hazelton. Ben, the great and powerful Oz on the other side of the curtain. Appreciate you, man. Eric, our set designer, graphic designer, in his boxers on his couch at home watching right now. Thank you to Eric. Spiro Avenue. We'll be back soon. Appreciate you guys. Go green.
Go white.